Hello grade 3s. So this week we're continuing with our weather theme. So you will see that there's some different slides in this PowerPoint that explain some different parts about weather, because remember we said we're not just going to focus on the easy things about the weather. We're going to go into a little bit more detail so that you can understand the weather when you watch the news and you see all these weather informations and all these things coming up. You will understand what it means and what they are saying. So you will see the next slide is exactly the same as last week's slide. Ma'am has put it in there because I would like you just to listen to it again and read it again, just to recap what the weather actually is. Okay, so before we can do anything about the weather or learn about it, we need to know what is weather. So if we look at the definition of weather, it says weather is the daily state of the atmosphere or air in any given place. In other words, that is what it looks like outside on any specific day, anywhere in the world. So whether you're in the UK or if you are in China or you're in the US or if you are in Australia or South Africa, when you look outside and you look at the air and you look at the clouds and everything that's happening outside, that is the weather, only for that day. But if we look at the climate, that is the average weather conditions in an area over a long period. In other words, the climate is over a long time. So they would take the information for a couple of years and they would look at each summer over a few years what the weather was like. Or they will look at the winter or whatever the case might be, and they will decide, okay, South Africa's summers usually last from this date to this date, and they're usually very warm, very hot, and there's rain. So that is the climate, is the average weather conditions over a long time. But weather is only what you see outside, what is the conditions outside on that specific day. Now the weather is very important to people because it affects their comfort, their food supply, and even their safety. So obviously the weather can make lots of natural disasters which can put us in danger, like hurricanes and floods and tornadoes and things. Our food supply can be affected because if we have a drought, for example, we don't have enough rain, then crops and things don't grow. So it creates a problem because there's not enough food for the people. And then obviously for our comfort, because if we go out and the weather suddenly changes to stormy conditions and you don't have an umbrella or a raincoat or comfortable shoes that can protect you from the rain, it can be rather uncomfortable. There are many different elements combined to create weather. In other words, many different things affect the weather. So temperature is one of the basic elements of weather. Temperature is how warm or cold it is outside. So obviously we know the temperature affects the weather. Wind, or the movement of air across the Earth's surface, is a second element of weather. Wind may be gentle or powerful. The third element of weather is humidity, or the amount of moisture, in other words, water in the air. Now, this is not the water like rain. This is just the moisture in the air. You can't really see it or touch it. But like if you live here in Gauteng, where we are, and you go on holiday to Durban, it always feels like you are sticky or sweaty and wet. And that is because of the moisture in the air, the water in the air. We can't really see that moisture, but we can feel it. It becomes like, almost feels like you climb off the airplane or get out of the car and it's like this oven of heat hits you, and that is part of the humidity. And this is warm air can hold more moisture than cold air can. So obviously it's warmer down by the coastal areas, so they have more moisture in the air, more water in the air to make it more humid. Precipitation is a fourth element of weather. Now precipitation may come in many forms, including rain, hail, and snow. The form precipitation takes depends on other weather conditions, such as temperature. So precipitation is basically anything that falls from the sky. So it can be rain, it can be snow, it can be hail, it can be sleet, mist, frost, any of those things. And what that is the moisture in the air, then obviously all the water in the air changes according to the temperature. So if it's very, very cold, like in England or the UK, it will freeze the water, which then makes snow. Here, if we have a hailstorm, it's when the hailstones are freezing cold in the clouds, and then when they drop, they start to melt because they start getting warmer. But up in the clouds, they are frozen balls of ice. A fifth element of weather is atmospheric pressure. Now this is just the weight, how heavy the air is above a given area. It changes in the pressure help people to predict approaching storms. So when they see how heavy the air is in specific areas, if it goes heavier or lighter, they can predict, they can tell if a storm is going to come. All right, so what is a weather forecast? Now, the word forecast means it's when you make a prediction or a good guess, like a clever guess about the future. So you forecast, you predict, you're going to have a guess. I think this is going to happen. And when we talk about specifically a weather forecast, this is when scientists, who we call meteorologists, use many different tools and equipment to predict what the weather is going to be in the near future. So they use, you'll see on the slide here, there's some images here by the little fence. There's like a long white pipe or pole going up with all sorts of equipment. They use that, and then there's another one in the field with green. This picked up on all sorts of weather changes and like the wind and rain probability and how much moisture is in the air, and all sorts of things that they read off of graphs and lots of information to predict, okay, if the temperature does this, then a cold front might be coming, or a heat wave or a storm, or whatever the case might be. Now, a weather map shows the weather forecast for the day and the upcoming week. So you'll see there's a picture there. So it shows you, okay, this one shows you many different places in South Africa, but then when they zoom in on each one, it shows you, for example, a whole week. Sometimes on your phones or different kinds of apps and technology, you can select the weather for the whole week for a specific place. And then it gives you the temperature, so the highs and the lows, the minimums and the maximums. And it tells us when there will be rain and how much rain we can predict, and more or less what time, sometimes even. So they give you lots of information, and they can also give us warnings of, like I said, cold fronts or heat waves, even storms, lightning, frost, hail, all those things. Okay, so when we look at weather symbols, we know weather symbols is like a sun is for sunny, and a sun with a little cloud means it's partly cloudy, and with rain falling out the cloud, we know it's rain. So those are not wrong. We do have those weather symbols because they even come up on our weather stations and our news channels when they tell us the weather. But weather symbols are pictures that are on a synoptic weather chart, which is used for weather forecasting or predicting. They show the details of the various weather elements. So those are little pictures that we can see that tell us what the weather is without them having to write out hundreds of sentences to explain the weather. We can look at it with the pictures there, and we know if you know what the symbols mean, then you can easily see what the weather is and what they're trying to predict and show us what's coming. The symbols or pictures are an easier way for us to see what the weather in our area is without having to read lots of information. So you will see here are some weather symbols for weather stations. Now these are what we call very scientific. This is what they use, those meteorologists, those scientists. They use this type of symbol chart. Instead of writing out all this information the whole time, they just draw these little pictures, and with all those pictures for one day, they can clearly see what is the cloud cover looking like. Is there no clouds, partly cloudy, overcast? What is the wind direction? In other words, is it going north, south, west? Is it a high or a low air pressure? They can also see there the showers. In other words, is it going to be a light rain? Is it going to be heavy rain, snow? What kind of rain? Is it light rain, or is it going to be a drizzle? Or is it going to be a thunderstorm? They can also look at what type of cloud it will be, so the different shapes that we see, how fast the wind will be, the speed, and if there will be a warm front, a cold front. And then also they look at, here on the side you will see what kind of cloud cover or sky cover. So is there a lot of mist, or is it very hazy, or is there fog? So they use these types of weather symbols And then you'll see the chart at the top has got like sunny weather with a little sun picture and things. So these are used on the news because not all of us understand these weather station where the scientists work, those symbols. But we can all see if it's a cloud with the rain coming out of it, we know it's a light rain that's possible, or a bit of cloud cover with some sunshine. So that just makes it a little bit easier for us to use weather symbols instead of writing all that information out. We can just look at the picture and understand. All right, so now we're looking at what is a synoptic weather map. Now, to understand this, we need to know what the word synoptic means. And it means it's a summary. In other words, a shortened version of something. So if I give you a long story to read, I can also give you a summary. In other words, I give you just the important information that you need. We don't have to read the whole thing, just the important information. Now that is what they do with the weather. The scientists don't give us everything on the news. We don't get a full science report from them to say, well, we studied the weather and the wind was doing this and then it did this and then they don't give us all of that information. They give us a summary, only what is important for us. So a synoptic weather map shows weather patterns over a large area by putting together many weather reports from different locations, all taken at the same moment in time. So this gives us a summary, an easy, short way of seeing the weather patterns in a specific area all at once. So if you look at the synoptic weather map that I've given you in the picture, you will see we have a map of Africa, and there's a whole lot of lines and all sorts of things going on this map. And all that is those lines are showing us how the weather has been put over different places all over Africa on top of each other, basically on a big map. And they're seeing how the wind is moving, how the pressure is moving. So you will see these blue lines with little arrows on. That's showing you where the wind is coming and how it is bringing the air pressure. In other words, a low pressure, which might be bringing in cooler air. And then you've got the red lines with the arrows. Those arrows show you where the warmer air is moving over. And then you can see the lines, how it moves across and where the pattern is going, to see how it flows over the country, or the continent in this case. So that is all a synoptic weather map is. It's basically all the weather for a big area, all shown to us at once.